Hello, everybody. We are getting drunk with TJ and Jen. My wife's
Good
an
to have
idiot.
you here. You gonna ask me some questions? Or just gonna suck on that
How
cigar?
did you get started in what other people would feel is such a mundane, boring ass hobby? How did you get started
Tell us
in
how
that?
you really feel.
Yeah, we're doing it. This is what we're doing.
That's a long story. You want the long or the short version?
Let's do the short.
Okay.
It's easier for editing.
Oh boy. That's just me, I guess. I've always been the outcast. The black sheep among the white sheep, disguised as a white sheep. Nobody knew I was the black sheep when I was a kid. But I always was the black sheep. I was a black sheep acting like the white sheep.
Right on. I
Okay.
can respect that.
And then went into the military, learned a bunch of shit, went through a traumatic situation, and then went to college, didn't know what the fuck to do. Decided on safety, occupational safety and health. I don't even know how. Money, I think, probably money. Doesn't it always come down to
It
money?
generally, it always stems from money. Like, what can I do to make a career for myself to make me financially stable?
At the time, I was a single parent.
Right.
So
Single
that
parent,
was
trying to
important.
find out what to
I
do.
wanted to be able to provide for him more
Yep.
than my parents provided for me. So I guess that's where it came from.
So
I
how
went
did
to
you?
college? I was working at the Army Depot as a aircraft mechanic, as a helicopter mechanic, and then got picked up in Corpus Christi as one of the safety technician after graduating college. 9 to 5, good for a single parent.
Yeah. Right on.
So after doing that for so many years, it just was like ingrained in me to continue doing that. And so when we moved here, so that you could be closer to Sean and work, and I didn't work here, I just continued that. I continued that routine of studying, reading, increasing my knowledge, and being pregnant, and then eventually having the baby, and just continuing on with it.
So you're gathering knowledge this whole time, and apparently, it's working because you have been shut down on Facebook. You have been shut down on Twitter, Instagram,
and YouTube has shut me down quite a few times.
and YouTube.
The
Is
last
actually,
time, they said they weren't going to let me back on until August 10th. And then when the WHO or something, I don't know, came out with deciding that the regulations were, I don't know, wrong or something. I don't remember. I thought, well, maybe they lightened the sentence, so to speak. And I could get back on and post videos. And then I tried, and I was able to post a video, even though they told me in emails, which I shared with some of my friends, they're not going to let me post videos until August 10th. I was able to share videos still. So I
Now-
after the WHO bullshit. came
Now,
out.
let me bring to light. There's a squirrel on the fence. Now, let me bring to light that you are supposed to have freedom of speech. You are supposed to have freedom to post what you think. And nobody should be able to do anything about that. But Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all these people has done their share to stop you, block your page, block your Facebook, take you completely off the internet, wipe you out like you just never existed.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think they do that to certain people?
I think it's because there's two reasons why I think it could be, and these are just guesses on my part. One is that they don't want truth coming out too quickly because of an economical disadvantage it has. So, like, let's say they have a plan to bring it down slowly. You know, like Ron Paul had said something about it's got to happen slowly, because if it happens too fast, it's too much all at once. So it has to happen slowly. So I think that one, it may be that they're trying to have a controlled demolition of the economic control they have, or two, that they just don't want truth coming out because it ends the corporate industrial complex, which was something that Eisenhower talked about. He talked about it in the sense of it being a military industrial complex, but Ron Paul came out and he said it was more like the corporate industrial complex, which, if you think about it, the corporations own everything, they operate everything, even the Federal Reserve banks. So it's more like a corporate industrial complex rather than a military industrial complex, which is something that Kennedy mimicked in his speech. He was mimicking Eisenhower, who came out with the jurisdiction report that I talk about in almost every single one of my videos, that really shows proof of the government being this small as opposed to countrywide or nationwide. It's really small.
If you had to take and explain to somebody one thing, the most important thing ever, let everybody know one most important thing, what would it be?
The government does not own you. It has control only on federal lands, and that's in the Constitution. And the report that I talk about all the time, put together by the commission or the committee that Eisenhower put together, talks about that repeatedly throughout this two-part report published in 1956 and 1957, part 1 in 1956, part 2 in 1957. The federal government only has jurisdiction, which means power and authority, which is capitalized, being specific nouns in the Constitution in every single instance. Specific power, specific authority. They only have it on federal lands, and not even just federal lands, but the lands. They have to purchase the lands. They can't acquire the lands in any kind of way. They have to purchase the lands, and that comes back to eminent domain, because eminent domain, they have to purchase the lands, not just acquire it. When they acquire it, they can acquire it, and they don't have the power and authority vested in them by the Constitution. They have some other power and authority.
Right on. I like it. So what do you think is the biggest fallacy for the newer generation coming up in the world? They have blocked almost everything out of the text in school. They're not going to teach you anything. I was born in 1972. We went to school, and there are certain things we learned they're not teaching you anymore. The biggest fallacy, the biggest bullshit, what do you think that is?
Grammar.
grammar.
They don't teach grammar.
Everything is all in the word. And what we lose, well, we lose
We
the
lose
word.
the meaning behind
The meaning
everything.
behind the word.
We lose
So you
the
have,
understanding.
she has spent extensive time learning the word. She has went to archives and libraries, old books, old texts to learn exactly what the word means. And that's something I think the younger generation,
They don't care.
they don't care. But it means a whole lot to you because the government is still using that. The fact that you don't know that, it means the world, and you're slowly losing everything. You're
Power.
losing it
You're
all.
losing
You're
your
losing
own power,
your own
your
power.
own sovereignty.
Yeah.
Because you
Why
don't
don't you
know what the
explain that?
word like state means. So in the Constitution, state is used in its most general sense. But there's certain reasoning behind using the word in its general sense. So I think the Constitution was written to deceive the king, because the king had chartered the colonies, and so he owned the colonies. So in order to get the colonies back under the United States of America, they had to deceive him by making him believe that the Constitution had the full power of all the people of the country, which it didn't. And they meant that way because then they could later go back and say that they could reduce the size of government. So at first it seemed like this huge thing, but once you really understand it, you see it's really, really very small. And that's all, in my opinion, caught up in the word state. So you have through the Constitution, the people that were elected, like the representatives and the senators that were part of, like, for example, I say just Texas or Oklahoma, not state of, forget state of, it's just Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Maryland. Those are the independent states that created the federal government. But then once you get to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, where the federal government was allowed to purchase lands inside the independent states, now came a new state on those particular lands given to the federal government. They're called dependent states, and they have zero sovereignty. Those are where our military reservations are, our military lands, our posts, what people commonly refer to as bases, or the army posts or the military posts. Okay, they're called posts. But those states are under the control of the federal government. But they, in the Constitution, just use the word state in its most general and broad sense. They don't say this is the independent state and this is the dependent state. Because what you create, you control. So you create your children, you control them all their lives, no matter what, no matter how old they are. If your son is 60 years old, he's still your son. So the military is still belonging to or under the control of the federal government. Because the president, his second office, his first office is Executor of the United States of America. The second office is Commander-in-Chief of the Land and Naval Forces of the United States. They weren't stupid. They knew what they were doing. The United States of America is not the long form of the United States. They're two different things. They're two different ideas. One is a dependent state, which is the United States. One is the independent state, which is the United States of America. So states they use in a very broad sense, but you have to know the maxims of law, which is what you create, you control. So first, the independent state created the federal government, and then the federal government created the dependent state called the United States Land and Naval Forces, which are the military reservations, and they control them. So words matter, they have meaning, but more than that, the ancient laws that have stood the test of time and have become absolute truths also have meaning, and they have to be applied to what and how those words are being used.
So, ladies and gentlemen, watching this, this is the first series and many yet to come, with many other people to be interviewed. We have Jennifer West. She has spent years, and literally years, and I know this for a fact. She's my wife, and I love her so much. And she has so much knowledge that people want to block her out. And you know as well as anybody that if something is hitting on hard, they're going to block you out. It's just all there is to it. The world is not free. The people who control your media is not free.
Soros.
And it's terrible. This is series 1 of many yet to come. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we want to
Expand your knowledge.
enlighten
you.
We want to show you the world of the real.
The real world.
And we will be back.